You wake up to the same buzzing sound every morning. The alarm clock glows red in the dark room, and you groan quietly, stretching your limbs with effort. At 6:30 a.m., your back already hurts. You swing your legs over the side of the bed and plant your feet on the cool hardwood floor. You know what day it is, not because of the calendar, but because of the slight pressure in your chest. It's not pain, not yet. It's the familiar tightness, the one you've been ignoring for months, the one that whispers you're not 25 anymore. You shuffle to the bathroom, passing the mirror with a quick glance. You splash cold water on your face, trying to wake up fully. The reflection stares back at you, thinning hair, faint lines on the forehead, and eyes that used to look sharper. You reach for your toothbrush, then pause. Your hand trembles just slightly, just enough for you to notice. It's the same tremble your father had before he was diagnosed with hypertension at 52. He didn't talk much about it, not until the heart attack came. In the kitchen, you make the same breakfast you've made for years. White toast, butter-fried eggs, bacon. It tastes like comfort. But the thought strikes you again. Should I switch to oatmeal? Cut the bacon. You hesitate before taking the first bite. At 43, you've started to think more about what goes into your body. You've read articles. Some say coffee is good. Others say it spikes your blood pressure. You drink it anyway, hot and black, watching the morning news without absorbing a word. Later, you're driving to work, and you feel it again. The dull tightness creeping up your neck, the stiffness in your jaw, a strange pressure between your shoulder blades. You adjust your seat roll down the window. Tell yourself it's just stress. But your mind plays tricks on you. It reminds you of every warning you've ever heard about heart health, about how silent high blood pressure can be, how one day it just takes everything without asking. At work, you avoid the donuts in the break room. You drink water instead of soda. You even take the stairs 4 flights, though you reach the top gasping and dizzy. No one sees, so you lean on the wall, pretending to check your phone. Your heart pounds in your chest like a warning bell. You ignore it. You tell yourself it's just because you're out of shape, not because something's wrong. But you know better. Last week, your friend Jim from accounting collapsed during lunch. 46. 2 stents now. You visited him in the hospital, saw the tubes and the beeping machines, the way his wife held his hand like she was afraid he'd vanish if she let go. He laughed when you visited, said it was just bad luck and too many double cheeseburgers. But the fear in his eyes didn't laugh. It stayed with you. That night, you lie in bed, staring at the ceiling. Your partner turns over. Beside you murmurs something in their sleep, then falls quiet again. You can't sleep. Your chest feels like it's wrapped in a belt slowly tightening. You sit up, swing your legs over the side of the bed again. It's always the same ritual. But tonight, you don't just go to the kitchen. You find your phone. You search heart attack warning signs. You read about high blood pressure, about how it's called the silent killer, how most people don't know they have it until it's almost too late. The next morning, you make an appointment with your doctor. At the clinic, you sit in a cold chair, surrounded by posters of healthy hearts and smiling seniors jogging along beaches. The nurse wraps the cuff around your arm and inflates it. You watch the numbers rise, then fall. She frowns a little. "We'll check again," she says. The second reading is higher. The doctor comes in with a calm expression, but serious eyes. He asks about your diet, your stress levels, your family history. You tell him the truth. Bacon, toast, long hours, no gym. Dad had heart trouble. Mom, too. He nods slowly, then types something into the computer. Your blood pressure is elevated, he says. We'll run a few more tests, but it's time to make some changes. He gives you a plan. Cut the sodium increase fiber walk every day. Monitor your blood pressure. Maybe medication, depending on the next results. It feels overwhelming. But then he says something that surprises you. This isn't a death sentence. It's a warning and a chance. You leave with a small monitor, a pamphlet full of foods you don't like, and a sense of urgency buzzing behind your ribs. You drive home quietly, skipping the drive-thru. That night, you Google low-sodium dinners and end up baking salmon with lemon and garlic. It doesn't taste like bacon, but it feels like control. It feels like you're doing something that matters. You start walking every morning. 10 minutes at first, then 20. You sweat, but you don't hate it. You start checking labels at the grocery store, learning what sodium hides in replacing chips with fruit. You miss the salt, the crunch, but not the headaches, not the pressure. Your partner notices. You look lighter, they say, not thinner, just lighter, and it's true. Something's lifted. At your follow-up, your blood pressure's dropped a few points. It's not perfect, but it's progress. You still worry sometimes. You still feel the tightness now and then. But now, you know what to do. You know what to look for. You know when to rest, when to call your doctor, when to take the stairs, and when to take a breath. You're not trying to be young again. You're trying to be here longer for yourself, for the people who matter. And for the first time in a long time, your heart doesn't feel like a ticking clock. It feels like a promise. You begin to realize that health isn't a switch you can flip. It's a series of choices, some small, some hard, that add up quietly over time. It's not about being perfect. It's about paying attention, about noticing how your body feels when you eat too fast or sleep too little, or let stress coil itself into your neck and shoulders. You become a student of your own rhythms, and in that attention, something awakens. One morning, as you lace up your walking shoes, you spot your neighbor Walter. He's 67 and always out before sunrise, moving slow but steady with a pair of trekking poles. You wave, and he nods, smiling under his baseball cap. That day you walk beside him. He tells you about his heart surgery 5 years ago, about how he used to ignore the signs just like you did. Didn't think it could happen to me, he says. But it did. And now I listen. You ask him what helped him turn things around. He shrugs. Fear mostly. And my daughter. She looked at me one day and said, "I'm not ready to lose you." That hit harder than the heart attack did. His voice cracks slightly, and you feel your own chest tighten, but this time with emotion, not pressure. You think about your family, your kids, your partner, the people who would sit beside your hospital bed holding back tears if things went wrong. You don't want to give them that version of the story. That night, you sit down at the dinner table with something new: grilled vegetables, quinoa water with lemon. Your partner raises an eyebrow, but tries it. Not bad, they say. You smile. It's not about giving up flavor. It's about discovering new ones. Your palate starts to shift. You start to crave lighter meals, less grease, less salt, more color. A few weeks later, you buy a home blood pressure monitor. The first reading is high, but not as bad as the one at the clinic. You try again in the evening. Lower. You keep a log. Patterns emerge. Stress at work makes it spike. Sleep helps. Processed foods raise it. A walk brings it down. You become your own experiment, and you're learning with every entry. Your doctor sees the data at your next visit. "This is great," she says. "You're taking control." She still recommends a low-dose medication, but this time, it doesn't feel like a punishment. It feels like a tool, one of many. She explains how high blood pressure damages the arteries slowly, silently, how it forces the heart to work harder, thickening the muscle until it eventually gives out. But she also tells you the good news, how the body can heal, how blood pressure can be managed, even reversed, with commitment. You read more now. Not just articles, but books. You learn about the DASH diet. You learn how potassium helps balance sodium. You discover that beets can lower blood pressure. You experiment with recipes. Find joy in cooking again. You stop using your microwave so much. You invest in a slow cooker. You start planning meals for the week instead of reaching for takeout menus. It's not easy, but it feels right. Sleep becomes a priority too. No more falling asleep with the TV on. No more late-night doom scrolling. You set a wind-down routine, warm shower. No screens, calming music. Your bedroom becomes a sanctuary. The darkness welcomes you now instead of suffocating you. And when you wake up, you feel rested, not groggy. You still hear the alarm, but your body doesn't resist the day as much. It meets it with a quiet strength. You talk to your coworkers about your journey. Some roll their eyes, but others lean in. They share their own concerns, their own family histories, their fears. One guy starts walking with you at lunch. Another asks for your quinoa recipe. You're not preaching, you're sharing, and it matters. On a Sunday morning, you sit on the porch with a cup of herbal tea. The sun is warm, and the air is gentle. Your blood pressure that day is the best it's been since you started tracking. You think back to the version of yourself who didn't want to see the doctor, who feared what the numbers might reveal. That person still lives in you. But now they have company. Someone stronger, more aware, more patient. The road isn't over. There will be days when you slip, when the bacon calls you back, when the stress wins. But those days won't define you. The rhythm you've built is stronger now. It carries you. You check your pulse. Steady, calm, alive. Your journey starts to change the way you view aging itself. It no longer feels like a steady march toward decline. Instead, it feels like a negotiation, a constant give and take between what your body needs and what your habits used to be. You realize that you can't do everything you once did, but you also don't need to. You've traded speed for intention, noise for clarity. You understand now that health isn't just about extending your life, it's about improving the quality of the years ahead. At your next checkup, your doctor smiles more. The weight's down, the blood pressure's under control. She listens to your heart and says it sounds strong. You leave the office and sit in your car for a few minutes, just breathing. Not rushing to the next thing, just being. You think about the word vitality. It used to sound like something reserved for the young. Now, it feels like a goal you're slowly earning back. You start walking in nature instead of around the neighborhood. The hills challenge your legs, and the wind feels like it's brushing away the years. You begin to notice the trees changing. The bird calls the rhythm of your own breath as it rises and falls in sync with the earth beneath you. You don't wear headphones anymore. You want to hear the world, to hear your own footsteps, to listen for the heartbeat that reminds you you're still here. 1 Afternoon, your adult son calls. You tell him about the new plant-based chili recipe you tried. He laughs. Since when do you eat kale? You laugh too. He doesn't say it, but you can hear the pride in his voice. Later, he texts you a photo of the same dish made in his apartment. You stare at the image longer than expected, not because of the food, but because of what it means. You're not just healing yourself. You're setting a path for others to follow. That evening, you go through your medicine cabinet and clean out the old pills, the ones you used to take for heartburn, for sleep, for headaches. You haven't needed them in months. You keep the blood pressure meds, but you start to wonder, will I need them forever? You ask your doctor at the next visit, and she says, maybe not. Let's keep tracking, she says. You're doing something right. You begin to understand the connection between your heart and everything else. Your mood, your energy, even your relationships. You're more patient with people. You pause more. You don't snap as often. Something about caring for your own body softens you toward others. You start volunteering at a community garden, planting spinach, tomatoes, herbs. You talk with retirees, young parents, college students. You hear their stories, and they hear yours. You realize how many people carry silent battles just like you did. On a weekend trip to visit your sister, she notices. You look good, she says, lighter, healthier. You tell her about the walks, the meals, the routine. She nods slowly, then admits she's been meaning to go to the doctor, but keeps putting it off. You recognize the fear in her eyes, the same fear you carried. You offer to go with her. She smiles, and that moment becomes the beginning of her own story. Then one night, after a long walk and a quiet dinner, you sit down and read an article about heart disease trends in the U.S. It talks about genetics, diet, lifestyle. But what stays with you is a single sentence. Most heart-related deaths are preventable. You stare at those words for a long time. Preventable. The word hits hard. All the missed warnings, the rushed meals, the unchecked stress it all builds. But it can also be undone. You think back to your father, the way he refused to change, the way he shrugged off the tightness in his chest until it became a collapse. You remember holding his hand in the hospital, his skin pale, his eyes hollow. You promised yourself, in the quiet hum of machines, that you wouldn't follow that path. And now, you're keeping that promise. The next day, you buy a new journal. Not for work, not for chores, just for you. You write down what you eat, how you feel, how many steps you walked. You record your blood pressure readings. You write about the people you meet, the meals that surprise you, the nights you sleep soundly. It becomes a ritual, a log of progress, a quiet reminder that you are not invisible, that your choices matter. You start to see your heart not just as a muscle, but as a storyteller. It records your joys, your regrets, your courage. It speaks through rhythms and pressure and beats. And now, You're finally listening. You look in the mirror one morning, and for the first time in years, you smile at the reflection. It doesn't look younger. It looks alive. The more you learn, the more you realize how much of your health was shaped by things you once ignored. What you ate, how much you moved, how you handled anger, how often you allowed yourself to rest. You remember nights in your 30s when sleep was just a delay between one workday and the next, when fast food was dinner 5 days a week, when stress was a badge of honor. But your body doesn't forget. It absorbs every habit, every choice. And now, it's asking you to choose differently. You start attending a small health workshop at the local community center. At first, it feels awkward, sitting in a circle of strangers, each sharing their own struggles with blood pressure, cholesterol fatigue. But as the weeks go by, those strangers become something more. You find yourself rooting for the retired school teacher who's lost 10 pounds. You high-five the mechanic who gave up soda. You share your own progress, your setbacks, your doubts. And through it all, you learn that heart health isn't just personal, it's communal. It lives in connection, in encouragement, in accountability. On the way home from one of the sessions, you stop by the store and make a decision you've been avoiding for months. You buy a blood pressure cookbook. You flip through the pages that night, surprised at how good the food looks. You dog-ear a few pages, then try one of the easier recipes, garlic lime chicken with roasted vegetables. It smells incredible. Your partner takes a bite, then raises their eyebrows. Okay. They say, I didn't expect it to taste this good. You grin. This is the kind of victory that doesn't need fanfare. It just needs repetition. The weeks turn into months. Your routine becomes second nature. You wake up earlier now, not because you have to, but because you want to. Your body feels lighter in the mornings, like it's no longer dreading the day ahead. You look forward to your walks, your time outside. Even rainy days don't stop you anymore. You just throw on a jacket and go. The air smells cleaner when you walk with intention. One day, a friend invites you out for lunch. It's at a diner you used to love, piles of fries, deep fried. Everything shakes as big as your head. You glance at the menu and feel the old cravings stirring. But something inside you has shifted. You order grilled fish, a side of greens, and water with lemon. Your friend teases you. Who are you? He jokes. You laugh with him, but deep down, you're proud. Not because you resisted, but because it didn't feel like resistance. It felt like a decision made from strength, not fear. That night, as you log your meals, your blood pressure, your steps, you notice a pattern. You've been in the normal range for 3 weeks straight. It's not a fluke. It's the result of 100 small choices adding up. You stare at the numbers, then close your eyes. You take a deep breath, slow and steady. This is what progress feels like. Not loud, not dramatic. Just steady. Just real. You begin to think about your future in a new way. Not just in terms of avoiding illness, but in building something health that supports travel grandkids. Long hikes, laughter that doesn't leave you gasping for air. You start talking to your financial advisor about retirement with more energy because now you can see yourself living well into it. You don't feel like you're racing against time anymore. You feel like you're pacing yourself towards something worth reaching. Your next doctor visit confirms it. Excellent, she says, reviewing your charts. You're a model case. She even lowers your medication dose slightly. You walk out of the office with your shoulders back. Not because of pride, but because of proof. Proof that change is possible. That age isn't a barrier. That prevention isn't too late. At the grocery store, you start helping strangers, offering recipe tips, pointing out good low-sodium options. A woman thanks you and says, "You must be a nutritionist." You chuckle. No, just someone who used to be scared and got tired of it. And that's the truth. Fear might have started this journey, but it's no longer the fuel. What keeps you going now is something steadier. Hope, discipline, and a deeper appreciation for the heart that beats inside your chest every second of every day, asking only to be heard, supported, protected. At home, you frame one of your earliest blood pressure logs and hang it next to your current chart. You don't do it to shame yourself. You do it to remember, to see the distance between who you were and who you are becoming. It's a map, and the destination isn't perfection. It's peace. You sit by the window one evening, a warm mug in your hands, listening to the rain. Your pulse is calm. Your breath is even. The storm outside doesn't bother you. You've weathered worse and come out stronger every time. You begin to share your journey more openly now. Not to boast, but to offer others the same lifeline that pulled you out of fear and into action. You write a short post online, just a few paragraphs about your story, about the early signs you ignored the doctor's visit that changed everything. The first walk that left you breathless, but determined. You don't expect much from it, but the responses come in quickly. People thank you. Some share their own numbers, their family histories, their fears. Others ask questions. What kind of monitor do you use? How do you deal with cravings? How long did it take before you noticed a difference? You answer them all. Not like an expert, but like someone who's walked the same uncertain path. Someone who still walks it every day. One message stands out. It's from an old coworker you haven't spoken to in years. He says he read your post and went in for a checkup. Turns out his blood pressure was dangerously high, and he had no idea. He thanks you, says you may have saved his life. You read his message 3 times. You sit with it stunned. Then quietly you cry, because you realize how rare it is to see the ripple effects of your own healing. At the next health workshop, you're asked to speak. You hesitate, but you say yes. That evening, standing in front of the group, you feel your heartbeat not with fear, but with purpose. You talk about denial, about how easy it is to blame stress, age, bad luck. You talk about learning to take your own pulse, not just with your fingers, but with your attention. You tell them that change isn't fast, but it's real. And that even a few better choices can start to shift the tide. Someone asks, "What if you slip?" You smile. Then you begin again. That's all life ever is. After the session, an older man comes up to you. He's in his 70s, thin frame, quiet voice. He says, "I wish I'd started this at your age, but maybe it's not too late." You place a hand on his shoulder. "It's never too late," you say. And you mean it. Your days have a rhythm now, not rigid, but balanced. You still indulge occasionally a small slice of cake, a greasy burger once in a while, but they're moments, not habits. and they no longer come with guilt. You've learned the difference between a treat and a pattern, between comfort and self-destruction. Your body has changed too. You move easier. You sleep deeper. The headaches that once haunted your afternoons have disappeared. The anxiety that used to spike at night has softened. You don't dread your checkups anymore. You walk in with curiosity, not fear. One morning, your blood pressure reading falls into the optimal range, 120/80. You stare at it for a full minute. Then you take a photo, print it, and pin it on the fridge. Not because it's the finish line, but because it's a milestone. A reminder that effort works. That your heart, once struggling to carry the weight of your choices, is now steady, supported, free. You start helping your partner make changes too. Not by pushing, but by example. They start walking with you, asking questions, reaching for fruit instead of chips. You cook together now. You laugh more during dinner. Even your arguments feel gentler. Because when you feel better, you live better. And when you live better, you love better. You find an old photo from 5 years ago. Your face heavier. Your posture slouched. Your eyes tired. You don't hate that version of yourself. You feel compassion for him. You wish you could reach through the photo and whisper, "Hold on. Help is coming." You go in for a heart scan just to be safe. The technician is cheerful. The machine's cold and humming. When the results come back normal, you feel something deeper than relief. You feel grace. Not because you're invincible, but because you were given time to change. And you used it. That evening, you sit on the back porch, watching the sun lower behind the trees. You hear the pulse in your ears, soft and rhythmic. Not a warning, not a threat. Just life humming along, steady and proud. Son, you close your eyes. You breathe in slowly. Your heart is quiet because it doesn't need to scream anymore to be heard. The seasons begin to shift again, and with them, your body seems to adapt more smoothly than before. Where once the cold tightened your chest and the heat drained your energy, now you move through the weather with ease. It's not because you're stronger in the way you once imagined bulging muscles or boundless energy, but because you're steadier, more in tune with your pace, your needs, your warning signs. The chaos inside you has quieted. One day, while shopping for groceries, you pass a young couple in the frozen food aisle. They're arguing about dinner, one wanting pizza, the other trying to push for a salad. You smile without judgment. You remember those conversations, how food felt like a battle between pleasure and guilt. Now, it feels like a conversation between nourishment and care. You pick up your usual staples, fresh greens, brown rice, lean proteins, and realize how normal it feels. Not a diet, a way of life. At home, you experiment with cooking like never before. You discover spices, turmeric, cumin, smoked paprika that light up your meals without a grain of salt. You try lentil stews and homemade hummus, air-fried tofu, and oven-roasted cauliflower steaks. You're surprised not only by the flavor, but by how much you enjoy the act of creation. Preparing your meals becomes a ritual, a statement, a form of self-respect. One weekend, your daughter visits from out of state. She walks in with her overnight bag and says, "You look different, Dad." You ask, "Better or worse?" She hugs you and says, like you've got your glow back. The phrase makes you chuckle, but later, when she's gone to bed, You sit quietly with those words, your glow. Not the light of youth, but the warmth of health, of presence, of showing up fully. She joins you for a walk the next morning. You take the hill trail. She's winded by the halfway point, and you smile, feeling the unexpected shift, how you've become the guide, how the teacher has changed. You tell her stories about your routine, your numbers, your doctor's support. She listens, nodding occasionally, asking questions. Later, she tells you she booked her first full checkup in years. Your turn to inspire, you say. At work, things shift too. You're not as reactive as you used to be. You pause more, delegate better, speak less, but with more weight. You stop staying late just to prove something. You no longer drink 3 coffees to make it through the day. You eat lunch outside now if the weather allows, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Your coworkers notice. Something's different, they say. You seem lighter. And again that word returns, lighter. You never knew how much heaviness you carried until it began to fade. Your phone buzzes with reminders. Check blood pressure. Refill prescription prep meals, but they no longer feel like chores. They feel like rhythms, gentle nudges toward a life that is yours to shape. You start journaling at night, not just your health numbers, but your thoughts, your memories, your hopes. Sometimes you write letters to your heart, thanking it for holding on through the worst of times, for beating through stress and fear and silence, for waiting for you to listen. The community center asks you to help lead a new class. Heart Health Over 40. You laugh at first, unsure you're qualified. But then you remember how much you've learned, how much you've lived. So you say yes. You prepare your notes, your stories, your readings. But mostly, you prepare to listen. Because you know every person in that room has a journey, a past, a weight they're ready to let go of. On the first day of class, a woman in her early 50s raises her hand. "What if I already messed everything up?" she asks. You look at her and say, "Then today is your first clean slate, and tomorrow will be another." Her eyes well up. Yours almost do too. Back at home, your living space reflects your new rhythm. The pantry is organized, the fridge colorful with vegetables and homemade sauces. You hang up photos of your walking routes, your class flyer, and the thank you note your daughter wrote before flying back. It reads, "Thank you for showing me that it's never too late to take care of yourself." One night, you dream of your father. He's younger, smiling. You walk beside him on a trail you don't recognize, but it feels peaceful. In the dream, he says nothing. He just nods. When you wake up, your heart feels full, not from nostalgia, but from peace. You didn't become someone else. You became more fully who you were always meant to be. And when you check your pulse that morning, it beats strong and sure, steady as sunlight rising over a hill you now climb with ease. Months pass, and with them comes an unexpected sense of joy, not the kind that bursts loudly into a room, but the kind that grows quietly under your feet, grounding you. Your days are not perfect, but they're stable, predictable in the best way. You find freedom in the things you used to resist: a grocery list, a walk at sunrise, a cup of herbal tea in the dark, stillness before the world wakes up. You begin waking naturally before your alarm. No more snoozing, no more dragging your body into motion. Your sleep is deeper now, restorative. When you close your eyes at night, your mind no longer spins in 1,000 directions. Instead, it slows, settles, breathes, and your heart, your once overworked heart, beats quietly in the background, no longer begging for attention. One morning, as you step onto your porch, with your tea in hand, you notice something you've never seen before, a tiny crack in the sidewalk where a single green sprout is pushing through. You stare at it for a while. There's something beautiful about that image, life finding a way through the hard surface. It reminds you of yourself, of how far you've come from the cement walls of old habits of denial, of neglect. Later that day, you visit your sister again. This time, she's the one showing you her new recipe binder, her walking shoes, her home monitor. You smile as she talks about quinoa like it's an old friend. "I finally get it," she says. "You don't fix your heart all at once. You just keep choosing it every day." You nod. She's right. That evening, your phone rings. It's an old friend you haven't heard from in years. "I saw your post," he says. "Honestly, it hit me. I've been scared to go to the doctor." You don't give him advice. You just tell him what worked for you. Start small. Stay consistent. Forgive yourself when you slip. It's not about being perfect, you say. It's about not giving up. You hang up the phone and sit with the silence that follows. But it's not empty. It's full of something sacred: connection, purpose, maybe even legacy. Because now, you're not just managing your own heart. You're helping others hear theirs. At your next checkup, your doctor beams. "This is textbook," she says, pointing at your numbers. "If every patient took charge like this, we'd need fewer prescriptions and more walking trails." You laugh, but you also feel the truth in her words. You've become proof that change is possible even after 40, even after years of bad habits, even when it seems like too much damage has been done. She hands you a new chart. It shows a slow but steady trend: downward blood pressure, resting heart rate, cholesterol. You take a photo of it. You send it to your daughter. She replies with heart emojis and "Proud of you, Dad." You read that message twice. Not because you doubt it, but because it feels like medicine. Back home, you dig through your closet and find an old photo album. Inside, a picture of you at 38, arms crossed, frowning at the camera. You look tired, heavy, not just in body, but in spirit. You close the album, not out of shame, but out of gratitude. Because that version of you didn't give up. He stumbled, yes. He ignored the signs for too long. But he got up. He changed. He chose life. You keep teaching the health class at the center. One day, a woman walks in late, out of breath, clutching a notebook. "I almost didn't come," she says, "but I just turned 50, and I figured it's now or never." You shake her hand and say, "Welcome. You're right on time." You begin to notice your awareness extend beyond yourself. When friends talk about feeling tired, you gently ask questions. Not intrusive, just present. When coworkers skip lunch and work through breaks, you suggest a walk. When someone offers you junk food, you smile and decline without shame. Your boundaries are not walls. They're guideposts. And then one morning, as you zip up your jacket for your daily walk, a thought settles in your chest like a soft weight. What would have happened if I had never gone to that first doctor's appointment? The question doesn't haunt you. It humbles you. It reminds you that every moment was a fork in the road, and you took the one that led you here. You step outside. The sky is gray, but not heavy. The wind brushes against your cheek like an old friend. You begin to walk. One step, then another. Your heart moves with you, not in panic, not in protest, but in peace. Autumn arrives with golden light and crisp mornings. The trees change first, then the air, then the way. Your hands instinctively reach for warmer clothes. But something else changes too. Something inside. You used to dread the colder seasons, shorter days, heavier meals, more excuses to stay inside. But now you find yourself embracing it. You layer up, lace your shoes, and keep moving. The cold no longer feels like a reason to stop. It feels like a challenge you're ready to meet. You join a community walking group that meets at sunrise every Saturday. They're a mix of ages and backgrounds, some in their 40s, others well into their 70s. The first time you walk with them, there's not much talking. Just breath gravel underfoot and the occasional call of a bird in the trees. But after a few weeks, the silence breaks. People start to open up about their health, their families, their regrets, their hopes. And once again, you're reminded that you're not alone. Everyone is carrying something. Everyone is trying to take one step forward. At one of the walks, a man named Robert joins for the first time. He's 62, a retired truck driver, and says he hasn't exercised in years. You walk beside him. He's slow wheezing a little. You don't push him. You just walk with him. Halfway through, he says, "This is harder than I thought." You nod and say, "The first ones always are, but every step counts." He nods back, and something shifts. Not just in him, but in you. You're not just managing your own health now. You're helping others believe they can too. That week, you're invited to speak at a local health fair. The room is filled with men and women who mirror your old self, worried, skeptical, tired. You tell them the truth. You didn't want to change, didn't think you could, didn't know how bad things had gotten until they almost broke you. But you also tell them how life can return, how clarity comes back, how the body responds when you start treating it like something worth saving. After the talk, a woman approaches you in tears. "My husband won't go to the doctor," she says. "He says he's fine, but I know he's not." You give her a gentle smile. Then he needs someone to walk with him, even if it's just around the block, even if it's just in silence. Sometimes change starts with company. Later, you sit in your car, staring at the steering wheel. You feel the familiar weight of memory pressing into your chest, the nights you stayed up fearing the pain, the mornings you ignored the signs. But the fear feels distant now, not gone, but softened. You've outlived it, outgrown it. At your next appointment, your doctor surprises you. "Let's try going off the medication for a month," she says. "Your numbers are excellent. Let's see how your body does on its own." The words settle into you like sunlight through a window. You nod slowly. "Okay," you say, not with overconfidence, but with calm trust. You're ready. That night, you celebrate not with cake or wine, but with a new pair of walking shoes. They feel light in your hands, almost like feathers. You lace them up the next morning and walk farther than you ever have 5 miles without stopping. Your legs burn, but your heart Stay steady. You reach a hilltop and pause to catch your breath. The town stretches out below, quiet and familiar. You close your eyes and place your hand over your chest. Steady, grateful. At dinner, your partner raises a glass of sparkling water and says, "To you, to all of this, to another year with the strongest heart I know." You clink glasses and you realize you're not just surviving anymore. You're thriving, not in a flashy way, in a way that feels rooted, lasting. You begin volunteering weekly at the health center, helping people learn how to use blood pressure cuffs, talking them through recipes, encouraging them during setbacks. You hear the same doubts you once whispered to yourself. It's too late. I'm too old. I've already done too much damage. And you answer every one with a quiet truth. No, you're here. And that means there's still time. You start a little blog, writing about the things you've learned: how garlic helps blood pressure, how walking clears the mind, how the hardest step is the first one. Strangers leave comments. One says, "Your story is saving me." You read that message again and again, not to inflate your ego, but to remind yourself why you started. One morning, your daughter sends you a photo. Her in walking shoes, standing in front of a trailhead. Starting today, the caption reads, "You feel your chest swell." You text back, "Proud of you. One step at a time." You step outside. The leaves crunch beneath your feet. The sky is overcast, but you don't mind. You've walked through darker days, and now every step forward is a celebration. You begin to notice that your relationship with time has changed. Where once the hours felt like something to survive, something that raced past or dragged on depending on the day, now they feel more like invitations. You use them carefully, not in a rigid, scheduled way, but with respect. You no longer multitask through meals. You chew slower. You taste more. You don't rush your walks. You let your thoughts wander. You look up more often, at trees, at clouds, at people's faces. You meet an old friend for lunch, someone you used to see all the time, back when stress was the unspoken currency of your lives. He orders a burger. You get grilled salmon and greens. He raises an eyebrow. "You really changed?" he says. You nod. "Yeah. Took a while, but I had to." He looks down at his plate for a long time, then says, "I've been feeling it too. The headaches, the weight. My doctor said I need to do something." You don't lecture him. You don't push. You just say, "Start small. Start soon. You'll be glad you did." He texts you the next day after a short walk. 2 blocks. Felt like 10. But I did it. You smile and reply, "That's everything." At home, you rearrange your living space, not because you need to, but because you want your surroundings to reflect how you feel inside. Lighter, cleaner, more open. You donate old items you no longer use. Stock your pantry with things that nourish instead of numb. You place a small potted plant on your kitchen windowsill. Every morning, it leans toward the light just like you. Your daughter visits again this time with her own grocery bags. Berries, lentils, whole grain pasta. She cooks dinner while you chop vegetables. The kitchen hums with warmth and oil and laughter. You notice how natural it feels now. Once this would have been a chore, a health obligation. Now it feels like a celebration of choice, of legacy, of life. You talk late into the night. She asks you things she never did before about your childhood, your regrets, your fears. You tell her the truth. You tell her about the nights you thought your heart was giving up, about how close you came to living in fear forever. But I didn't, you say. I turned around. She holds your hand and says, I'm glad you did. The next morning, you show her your walking trail. The air is crisp, the sky a soft blue. She keeps pace beside you, and you realize that you're not just walking for yourself anymore. You're walking for memory, for her, for the possibility that one day she'll remember this trail, these moments, this version of you. At your health class, a new woman joins. She's nervous, arms crossed tightly over her chest, eyes darting around. You remember that posture. You remember the walls. She sits in the back, silent through the session. But after class, she walks up to you and whispers, I'm scared. My dad died from a heart attack. I don't want to go the same way. You meet her eyes and say, then you're in the right place. And you're not alone. You walk with her the following week. She struggles. Her breath is short, her steps uneven, but she shows up. You tell her that every walk gets easier. You tell her she's doing better than she thinks. You see the way she lights up just a little when she checks her blood pressure later that day and finds it's lower than usual. You know that feeling. The quiet victory, the proof. Your blog grows, slowly but steadily. One post becomes 10, then 20. You write about how to read food labels, about how to build a morning routine, about what to do when motivation disappears. You don't pretend to have all the answers. You just tell your truth. You write the way you wish someone had spoken to you back when you were scared and stuck. One evening, your doctor calls not for an appointment, just to check in. We're seeing amazing results with people you've spoken to, she says. I just wanted to thank you. You sit with that for a moment, not because it's hard to believe, but because it's healing to hear. That night, as the house settles into quiet, you step outside. The stars are out cold and clear. You breathe deeply, slowly. Your hand rests on your chest. The beat is steady, familiar, yours. You realize you're no longer fighting your body. You're walking with it, and for the first time in your adult life, you feel truly deeply well. The final leg of your journey isn't about numbers anymore. It's not about your blood pressure readings, your sodium intake, or your resting heart rate, though those things still matter. It's about integration. About how this way of living is no longer a strategy or a response to fear. It's simply who you are now. The habits, the mindset, the calm, they're all woven into the fabric of your life. You wake up one morning and forget to check your numbers. Not because you're careless, but because you're no longer obsessed. Your body gives you its own signals now. You know when something feels off. You trust yourself enough to listen. You've built that relationship with your heart, with your health, with time itself. You're invited to speak at a larger event, a regional wellness conference. Hundreds of people, rows of chairs, lights, cameras. You hesitate. This was never your plan. But you say yes. You step onto the stage in a plain shirt and walking shoes. You don't read from a script. You tell them about the night you almost didn't call your doctor, about the bacon breakfasts and ignored headaches, about the slow walks and the quiet victories. You look out across the room and say, the scariest thing I ever did was admit I wasn't okay. But the bravest thing I ever did was keep going. People stand and clap, not because your story is flashy, but because it's real. Because it's theirs too. You stay after the talk, answering questions, shaking hands, listening. You meet a man who brought his teenage son. I wanted him to hear from someone who turned it around, the father says. You meet a nurse who prints out your blog posts for patients who don't use the internet. You meet a woman who drove 3 hours just to say thank you. Back home, you begin to write more. A book, maybe. A deeper version of your story. Not just for people in crisis, but for anyone standing at the edge of change, unsure if it's worth the leap. You write about the power of routine, the quiet strength of walking, the dignity in choosing life, even when it's hard. You create a folder on your computer titled Legacy. Inside it, you save your health records, your recipes, your journal entries. One file simply reads, "If I had to start again today." It lists your first small steps book, an appointment, buy a monitor, take a 10-minute walk, cut one bad food, tell one person the truth. You imagine your daughter finding it someday, or her children. You hope it gives them what you were missing: direction, courage, clarity. On your birthday, your house fills with laughter. Family, friends, neighbors. Someone bakes a cake that's low sugar, low sodium, and still delicious. You make a toast not about aging, but about arrival. I used to think growing older meant fading, you say. Now, I see it means focusing on what matters, on who matters, on how we care for the vessel that carries us. The applause is warm, the clinking glasses gentle. Later, after the guests leave and the house goes quiet again, you take a walk alone. The moon is full, the trees are still. You feel the cool air move through your lungs. You touch your chest, not out of worry, but out of gratitude. And somewhere in the stillness, you remember the first night you felt that pressure, the one that scared you, the one that made you sit up and pay attention. It wasn't your end. It was your beginning. You pause under a street lamp, breathing evenly, your silhouette casting long into the sidewalk. You feel strong, not in a dramatic, heroic way, but in the quiet way that builds over years of choosing better. You whisper into the silence. Thank you not to anyone in particular, but to the road to your heart, to the years that waited for you to arrive. You turn toward home. Your steps are steady. The rhythm of your life is strong. Your heart, once tired and uncertain, beats not with urgency, but with trust. You made it, and now every moment is yours.